This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. This episode of 20th Century Boy is brought to you by Radio Mike on Patreon and the TCB Overflow podcast. If you finish 20th Century Boy and you want to hear more from me, head to patreon.com/radiomike and for as little as $1 a month, get the Overflow podcast. An extra podcast every single week. And the Pat and Mike Show, where producer Pat and I talk everything behind the scenes of 20th Century Boy. The Patreon is overflowing with content. We'll see you there.
Show your move. Good news, everyone.
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Obi Trice, real name, no gimmick. And this is the inside of my mind. Joke name up the top, of course, because Obi Trice, real name, no gimmick, is just the start of the Eminem song Without Me. We all know it. You can, if you've heard the song, you're picturing it in your mind right now. It's like Obi Trice, real name, no gimmick. A little bit more on that later, because of course my name is Radio Mike. Every week on the show, I start the show with a different name. Sometimes listener submitted, sometimes Mike generated. This week it was Obi Trice, real name, no gimmick. Just in case, more on that later, as I said. This is, of course, 20th Century Boy, a podcast by me, Radio Mike, a youngish writer and producer from Melbourne, Australia, just trying to make his way through life. Sometimes it's easier than other times. At the moment, it's not too bad. Not too bad. Things are going okay. Having a good time with life. And the main conceit of this podcast, just think of it as the conversations you wish you were having. The conversations you wish you and your friends were having, but you're not. So you turn on this podcast once a week for 45 minutes to an hour to listen to me talk about all the things you wish you were talking about. That is this podcast. That is 20th Century Boy. It's a one-sided conversation between me and you. It's kind of like a vlog, kind of like a blog, I guess, my weekly blog, but it's the conversations you want to be having. You're not having them, you listen to the podcast, you get it. I hope you're going well. I'm going really well, and thanks everyone for returning to the podcast. Of course, as always, we start the podcast with a plug for the Patreon, because that's the only way the podcast exists, is if there's some money coming in. 49 patrons, getting really close to that 50. Jump on, $1 a month. New tagline for the Patreon. The Patreon is overflowing with content, or rather, the Patreon is overflowing with exclusive content. The Patreon is overflowing with exclusive content. $1 a month, that's $12 a year. That's 3 coffees a year. I've got a coffee right now. If you'd buy me a coffee 3 times a year, jump on the Patreon. It's so easy to sign up, and it really helps me keep the show alive, because the show generally costs more money to produce than it brings in. So I'd love to get to a breaking even point, to be honest. Patreon's the best way for you to help that, or a one-off donation, paypal.me/itsradiomike. Send me $12. I'll give you all the Patreon content. At the moment, of course, the Overflow podcast, right? Because the Patreon is overflowing with content. The TCB Overflow goes up every week at the same time as this podcast. So as soon as you finish listening to this, jump on the Patreon, listen to the Overflow. It's like a debrief. I share stuff I wouldn't share on the normal pod. I answer your questions. It's really fun. People are really liking it so far. It's been fun. As well as that, the Pat and Mike Show, where me and producer Pat talk behind the scenes of this show. If you want to know more about how we make the show and stuff, jump on. This week on the Pat and Mike Show, we talk about the day that Pat met Andy Lee from Hamish and Andy and made an idiot of himself. It's a great story. Listen to it now and the entire back catalogue of Pat and Mike for $1. There's another one going up on Friday. Amazing stuff. On the Overflow this week, I'm going to be answering a bunch of questions that came in about my work on The 100. So if you want to learn more about how Australian TV comedy is made and written, jump on the Patreon this week. just jump on for a month. $1, you get the entire back catalogue. That's really cool. Just jump on, listen to it all, jump off, jump back on when you've got another $1 you want to give. Want to hear all about the 100 and riding on that show, jump on the Patreon. Thank you. It really does help keep the show going. So awesome. Thank you everyone who's been jumping on recently, including some of our newest Patreon members, Patrio Sydney, who signed up 4 days ago, and Patrio Damien Daly, who signed up 3 days ago. And I just realized, whoa, this was not planned. In season 2 of the show, I was looking for an official Damien of the show. I don't know where that idea came from. I was looking for the official Damien of 20th Century Boy. We just wanted a Damien. There is a channel in the Discord which is called My Name is Damien. Get in the Discord if you'd like to be in it. Just lots of people, hundreds of people chatting about this podcast. There is a channel in the Discord called My Name is Damien, and you're not allowed to post in it unless your name is Damien. So it's like, it's pretty much empty at the moment. So Damien Daly, get in touch. I just realized you're a Patreon. Do you want to be the official Damien of the show? Have we found him? We did find one guy a few months ago, and I asked him, but he clarified his name is Damian. I-A-N, not I-E-N. We need a Damien. So Damien Daly, geez, I didn't even make that connection until right now. Please reach out to me if you want to be the official Damien of the show. Finally have one after years of looking. Guys, a bunch of stuff to cover today. I've generally been good. Going in to record Hamish and Andy tomorrow on Tuesday. I'm recording this on Monday. It'll be out on Wednesday. So pretty busy week. It's always a busy week on a Hamish and Andy week because sometimes we record a couple, so we're a little bit ahead so we can have a week off. And those weeks are much more quiet. But I've been really good. Special shout out again to Radio Lockie Braid. Last week I mentioned how he was binging the podcast from the start. As I've said, season 1 to me, bit hit and miss. I know a lot of people love it. I cringe at it. I don't want to listen to season 1 ever again. I hate it. I've come so far since then. But if you want to listen to it, sure. I always say start at season 3 because I can't remember much of what happened in season 2. Start at season 3. I think I'm comfortable with you starting at season 3. Of course, Lockie Braid last week, well, I'll get to that, but he said this week, happy 25th birthday. If you're a long-time listener, you know the story behind that meme of the show. On my 25th birthday in 2019, I think, a podcast came out that day, December 12th, 2019. And I said, if you're listening to this in the future, send me a message saying happy 25th birthday, and I'll know, and I will forever being celebrating my 25th birthday, which is still happening. It's been 3 years since then, and I'm still getting messages saying happy 25th birthday. Of course, last week, Lockie Braid sent me a message saying just John, which was the PhenomoJohn, which I don't think I explained last week, so I'm going to explain it again. The PhenomoJohn is a curiosity of human existence that I've realized. I realized it a few years ago on the podcast, and I said, if the PhenomoJohn applies to you, send me a message saying John. We might make a TikTok clip of this, Pat. So if the PhenomoJohn applies to you, leave a comment saying John below. And the PhenomoJohn is as follows. Every single person in Australia, and I guess you could extend it to the world, but every single person in Australia has an uncle named John. Everyone has an Uncle John. Indisputable fact about being Australian. You probably have an Uncle John. Now, there are a few caveats to it, right? So if you don't have an Uncle John, don't say, oh, the PhenomoJohn doesn't apply to me. If you don't have an Uncle John, then it is highly, highly likely that either you or your grandfather are named John. And if neither of those apply, so if you don't have an Uncle John, you're not a John, and you're not, you don't have a Grandpa John, right? Then it is almost certain that your dad's name is John. Just putting it out there. Do the test now. Again, comment. Send me a message again if you have an Uncle John, if you or your dad are John. And lots of people would message me being like, well, you know, I'm Italian and my grandfather's name is Gian or whatever it is, Giovanni, and that's the Italian John. I'm like, yep, applies for all languages. Any Juans, any Jonathans, any Giannis, Giovannis, Jono. I don't think anyone's actually just called Jono, but if you've got a Jono, what else? I think there's a lot, even a Jack. Jack counts because Jack, the name, originated as a nickname for John. So if you've got an Uncle Jack, a Dad Jack, Grandpa Jack, or if you're a Jack, it's actually covered by the PhenomoJohn. Now, some critics of the PhenomoJohn theory might say that John is just a very common name for a white guy. Now, that is true, but I still think the PhenomoJohn does stand. So let me know if the PhenomoJohn applies to you. Please let me know ASAP. Over the weekend, I jumped into an actual professional studio because I've been wanting to do this for a while. Years ago, I did on Instagram and TikTok. It's one of the most viral things I've ever done on TikTok. An acoustic pub-style cover of Without Me by Eminem. Now, this looks like you all know it, and that's why I started the show with it today. And I want to talk about a little bit about that song, but I jumped in with Mitch, who he used to be an audio engineer that worked at the radio station back when I worked in radio. So we're good mates. We're both born on the same day, funnily enough. So we share a birthday. We've been mates for a while, and he was like, yeah, I'll jump in the studio with you because I wanted to do a proper studio version of my acoustic Without Me cover. Because a lot of people had been asking for it. Like, when's this on Spotify? Full version on Spotify. And I'm like, yeah. And then I tried to do it myself, but I just suck at doing it. So we recorded the full song. It's nearly done, and then I'm going to chuck it on Spotify. This is from verse 3, I think. So you've only ever heard verse 1. Verse 3 was really tricky. This is a bit of verse 3 from my Eminem Without Me acoustic cover.
But sometimes, man, it just seems everybody only wants to discuss me. So this must mean I'm disgusting, but it's just me, I'm just obscene. Well, I'm not the first king of controversy. I am the worst thing since Elvis Presley to do black music so selfishly and use it to get myself wealthy. Hey, here's a concept that works. 20 million other white rappers emerge, but no matter how many fish in the sea, it'll be so empty without me, so...
Into the chorus there. Great song. So you can look forward to that. A lot of listeners have been like, when are you doing this? And I would like to do more of them. They just take heaps of time. But really inspired by... A lot of people said on that TikTok it sounds like Seth Sentry. I only know a couple of his songs. It reminds me more of that style. Ed Sheeran did a song on one of his first albums called You Need Me, I Don't Need You. I'll put a grab of it in here.
Now I'm playing sound, break it down, thinking of making a new sound, playing a different show every night in front of a new crowd that's new now. Chow seems to laugh is great now. See me lose focus as I sing to you loud.
And as you heard, it was like lots of rap vocals over an acoustic guitar, and that's kind of what it was inspired by the most because I really liked that sound from Ed Sheeran. I loved he also does a song on his Number 6 Collaborations Project album with Eminem and 50 Cent called Remember the Name. And again, he raps in that, of course, because it's a song with Eminem and 50 Cent. And it sort of I really like that song. I think that's one of because I love Eminem as well. That's one of my favorite songs. I'll put a grab of it here.
Yeah, I was born a misfit, grew up 10 miles from the town of Ipswich. Wanted to make it big, I wished it to existence. I never was a sick kid, always dismissed quick. Stick to singing, stop rapping like it's Christmas. And if you're talking money, then my conversation's shifting. My dreams are bigger than just being on the rich list. Might be insanity, but people call it gifted. My face is going on.
So yeah, look forward to that. It'll be on Spotify. I'll do an announcement of it when it's up. So we're just finishing it up, doing some processing on it and stuff. That's just a little bit of a tease. But of course, I do want to talk about the song Without Me. It's been on my mind a lot because I was doing this. It's just been circulating my mind. First, it's one of the greatest rap songs ever written, for sure. Undoubtedly. It's an incredible song. It's an amazing, satirical song. And to me, this is peak Eminem. Every album that Eminem's done in the past few years, I'm just going to look up. He's done maybe... What are the last few albums he did? He did Music to Be Murdered By, terrible. Kamikaze, terrible. He did an album called Revival. I thought that was very okay. There are a couple good songs. I haven't really enjoyed his style at all in the last few albums. And I grew up loving Eminem, like the old school Eminem. And yeah, he's just, I don't know, he just sucks now. Like no, he doesn't suck, but I just don't think he's as good at rapping as he used to be. Sometimes I listen to his song and I'm like in the new albums, and I just think, you would have never done that in an original song. And I get that he's like developing, but genuinely when I hear some of the rhymes and some of the like syncopations in the rhythm of the rapping, I'm like, that was so bad. Like, it's just actually not good. It just feels like you're trying to jam words in when you really like, you used to be really good and it felt so flowy. Now it's like some of the words are really disjointed. Anyway, I don't really know how to describe rap music, but I've just noticed it. Really enjoyed Recovery, his 2010 album. Relapse, I thought was really good, 2009. And then, the peak Eminem era of like Encore, the Eminem Show, Slim Shady LP, and Without Me is from the Eminem Show, I believe, which also had Cleaning Out My Closet, Sing for the Moment, Till I Collapse, like a bunch of amazing songs. And he is an amazing and really interesting dude. Without Me, first of all, I want to put it out there. I want to ask a question to the audience, okay? Send in an answer to this if you know it. Call in the show even, 1-800-438-353 is the hotline number. The Eminem song Without Me starts after Obi Trice, Real Name, No Gimmicks, which first of all, have we ever got an explanation? I'm sure there is, please excuse my ignorance. I'm sure there is an explanation as to what that means. But what does Obi Trice, Real Name, No Gimmicks mean? I know Obi Trice is another rapper. I should go into Google and actually just look up. I know he's another rapper that was friends with Eminem. Obi Trice, American rapper. He was signed to Shady Records, which was Eminem's record label. Okay, so he's just a rapper, and maybe that's him saying Obi Trice, Real Name, No Gimmicks. But why does he do that? Because as far as I'm aware, he doesn't appear in the song. Maybe I'm wrong. Can someone do some research and figure that out? Then the song continues with this iconic part.
Two trailer park girls go round the outside, round the outside, round the outside.
Okay, so iconic moment in music. Like, everyone would know that. If you go up to anyone and you're just like, two trailer park girls go round the outside, round the outside, round the outside, I reckon everyone would just be like, chip chip ba, right? Everyone would do it. But you know what I've been thinking? What does that mean? What does two trailer park girls go round the outside mean? Can someone explain it to me? Because, like, just listen.
Two trailer park girls go round the outside, round the outside, round the outside.
And as far as I can see, it has no relevance to the rest of the song, unless I'm missing something. Like, I really just don't know what the Obi Trice, Real Name, No Gimmick, and two trailer park girls go round the outside means. Can someone explain this to me? What is he talking about? Because the song Without Me, at the end, like, it's quite a comedic song. Like, it's almost like a comedy song in a way, because it's like satirical. It's Eminem essentially rapping about how, like, the last verse is literally, I'm not the first king of controversy, but I am the worst thing since Elvis Presley to do black music so selfishly and use it to get myself wealthy, right? So he's talking about how, like, rock and roll and rap and hip hop are traditionally black genres of music. Like, they have, their roots are in vaguely their roots are in, like, African American culture, and then a lot of, like, white people have gone and sort of appropriated this and made really big careers out of rock and roll and rap, the way that Elvis Presley kind of did with rock and roll and Eminem did with rap. And there's, lots of songs in Eminem's discography that discuss this thing of him being a white rapper that was really, really, really successful, more successful than a lot of his black peers, right? And there was a lot of tension because of that, because it was like he didn't earn it. And of course, a white man is going to come in and do a black genre of music and become more successful at it, because that's just how the world works. And there's a lot of that. And that's one reason I find Eminem's discography so interesting, he's a great storyteller. As well as that, there's a lot of his experiences with drugs and alcohol, and, you know, he literally has an album called Relapse and Revival and Recovery, and all of those link into that part of his storyline, plus his daughter that he talks about a lot in his music, and his ex-wife and things like that. So he's a very interesting musician, and Without Me is a fascinating song. It's a really fascinating and self-aware song, and I think, you know, he pokes fun at his own success. He pokes fun at the system that allowed him to become so successful. And he also had a band called, well, not a band, a rap group called D12, again, of which he was the only white member of. And they had a song called My Band, which I was listening to on a run the other day. It's a classic song. Again, a comedy-ish kind of song in which basically Eminem and all his mates that were rapping growing up were like, if any of us make it famous, we come back for the rest of them. And that's what happened. After Eminem got famous, he came back and did an album with D12 that got really big. And there were a bunch of members of D12, including Proof, I didn't plan to talk so much about Eminem, but now I just really want to because it's been on my mind. Proof, who was another rapper who was one of Eminem's best friends who was killed. And a lot of Eminem's music mentions Proof. A lot of his music talks about this person and the wider Eminem canon, I suppose. And, you know, pre-Proof dying, which was a tragedy, but the song My Band was essentially a song about how, I'll put a grab in it somewhere, but it's essentially a song about how Eminem was the lead singer of the band and was more popular than all of the other members, and how they were all jealous and wanted to defect from the band. And it was all kind of like in jest, but it was just kind of self-referential to what had happened, which was like, you know, Eminem became a worldwide sensation, whereas like all the other members like Proof, Conniver, all these other rappers from that kind of area of America that grew up around Eminem, like they never really became massive. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. But yeah, if someone can please explain to me what this means.
Trailer park girls go round the outside, round the outside, round the outside.
But yeah, Eminem's music is so self-reflective and very interesting lyrically, particularly in those early days. Like songs like Mockingbird and Stan, like really amazing at how do we tell stories through music. Mockingbird is an incredible song about, you know, telling a life story or telling a story of in time through rap or through music. Same with Cleaning Out My Closet, you know, his relationship with his mum, who was a drug addict, or same with Beautiful from the album Relapse, Love the Way You Lie, such like vivid imagery in that song, and such like communication of anger and hurt and pain through music. And I think, you know, he is really good. He is a really good musician. Again, didn't plan to talk so long about Eminem, but here we are, like 15 minutes later. Guys, I do want to talk about something I watched last night, because I was actually pleasantly surprised by the Halo TV series. For those who don't know, Halo is probably one of the biggest, most successful, and like most critically acclaimed first-person shooter gaming franchise in history. Like, it is very well regarded. It's basically a science fiction first-person shooter game series in which you play as this soldier called Master Chief. It's a Microsoft exclusive, so it's an Xbox and PC exclusive. You can't get it in any other console, and it's probably one of the most valuable kind of Microsoft gaming intellectual properties. So recently there's been a big surge in like adapting video games into movies and TV shows, and I was kind of surprised that, yeah, Paramount Plus, our best friends who have only gotten good reports on this podcast. No, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll know that Paramount Plus is a network that I find really funny and shit. But yeah, Paramount Plus have commissioned this Halo live action TV series. And I've never been an Xbox guy, so I've played Halo fleetingly over the years, like at friends' houses and stuff, and it's a really critically acclaimed game series. And I've always enjoyed it. I've always thought the world was really interesting, but just haven't ever gotten into it because I never owned an Xbox, so I couldn't really play it. And I watched the first episode of the Halo TV series, and I guess if there's any game that I think could be adapted well into a movie or into a show, Halo definitely springs to mind, like in terms of being so in depth of like science fiction and everything like that. Like it's about killing aliens and stuff like that in the future. Very sci-fi heavy. And yeah, I watched it, the first episode, and there is marketing, particularly in Melbourne, there's marketing everywhere. Like there's Halo on buses, Halo at the train station down the road from my place. Like everywhere I go, there's billboards, Halo, 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 watch Halo, watch Halo, watch Halo. They're sponsoring Two Guys, One Cup, which is a podcast I produce, or just Halo. Everyone, like, this is a big deal for Paramount Plus. It's, again, my criticism of Paramount Plus back in the day on this podcast was that who the fuck knows anything by Paramount? So this is like their first, to me, like their big launch into the world of like exclusive content that people will want to watch. And I thought it was really good. I was really worried. I thought it was going to be terrible, like most game-to-screen adaptations, but I genuinely thought it was a really interesting show. I'll definitely watch another episode, and it's probably 10 to 15 minutes before it happens, but the moment the live-action Master Chief is the main playable character in Halo, the moment he appears on screen, live action, it was amazing and quite surreal. Like, it looks exactly like it does in the game, but just better. Like, and it was like this moment of like bringing this thing to life, and I was like, wow, that is awesome. And it's very Star Wars-y, like massive Mandalorian vibes, especially the fact that Master Chief wears, you know, a helmet and lots of characters in metal armor with helmets on, very Star Wars-y kind of Wild West in space vibe, you know, space western they call it, and lots of killing and fighting, a bit more gory than Star Wars, but yeah, massive Mandalorian vibes coming from this show that I thought is a good route to go down, like trying to capitalize on the Star Wars fandom and bring them over to Halo, not an equally profitable franchise, but an equally popular, not even equally popular, but a franchise that is really popular. You know, not as popular as Star Wars, which is like nearly impossible, but a franchise that is really, really popular, and getting that install base over to your platform. Very clever from Paramount to commission this $90 million budget on the show. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing it continue. I think it was a really good show. Would be keen to hear people's thoughts if you've watched it or if you're a Halo fan, because again, I'm not too well versed on the lore of Halo or like the story of it. So a lot of the stuff in the show, I assume there was a lot of referencing to the games that if you play the games, you're like, oh, I get that. Oh, I get that. But I didn't really pick up on any of that. So it was just kind of a fresh thing for me. And I think that's good. It's like, how do we get this cool, you know, and this is like the business perspective of all of this. It's like, okay, there's this world of Halo we've created on video games, and there are some people who will probably just never play a video game. They just won't do it. They're too old, or they think it's lame. They just can't play games. They can't afford it. How do we get the world of Halo to those people? Oh, let's make a Halo sci-fi TV series and market it, you know, the same way Disney is marketing Star Wars. Market it as like a science fiction thing. Yeah, it's based on a game, but let's just market it as a new show about an alien invasion, and let's sell it to people who would never play a game. And it's like, and of course the people who play the games come over and watch the show, right? But I think it's just interesting to see how they're trying to expand things these days. Like, Disney and Marvel and Star Wars and everything, they're the masters of it. With Marvel in particular, I was saying to a friend, I went to drinks with a friend the other day, I was talking about how I think Marvel is just such an interesting business study. The way they've done their business, and like, yeah, now, you know, we're doing movies and shows that are companions, and then video games. So like every area of the market, they've covered, and they all count towards a big overarching story. So hardcore fans just want to see and experience everything. And then there's theme park rides and, YouTube channels with bonus content and everything you can think of. So everywhere, all the time, people are thinking about Marvel. Marvel. I'm going to watch my Marvel movie at the cinema, go on my streaming service and watch a Marvel show. Then I'm going to play a Marvel video game. I'm going to watch YouTube videos about Marvel. And then I'm going to read a book or a comic book, a Marvel comic book. Really interesting how these businesses are just dominating every entertainment market possible. Even literally in Melbourne, there's Marvel Stadium. One of our biggest footy stadiums is now Marvel sponsors it. So it's Marvel Stadium. You drive into the Melbourne city that way. You can literally see the Marvel logo in the sky as you're driving to the city. Fascinating. Halo was really good. It also got me thinking about other movies that are based on games that I've seen. And a lot of people always go like, Pixels and Wreck-It Ralph. But like, they are movies that are about games. They're not movies based on games. Like, Wreck-It Ralph isn't based on an existing game called Wreck-It Ralph the way that like Halo the TV show is based on Halo the game. Wreck-It Ralph is a movie about games that's trying to like do nods to gaming culture. Same as Pixels. They're not based on existing video games. They're about games. Like Free Guy. Free Guy isn't based on a game. It's about games. Just clearing that up because people seem to get confused. When I'm talking about movies based on games, these are the ones I've seen. So Sonic the Hedgehog, Mortal Kombat, the one that came out last year, Detective Pikachu, obviously based on the game of the same name, Uncharted, saw that recently, Ratchet and Clank, Angry Birds the movie, which I actually did as part of this podcast a few years ago in a segment we had called Red Carpet Catastrophe, which is where I reviewed bad movies. And then, I'm not sure if this counts, but Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which was a CGI animated movie based on Final Fantasy VII. So I guess it does count. And of those, like, video game movies have a reputation for being really bad. Generally, they are really bad. Recently, we've seen some that are reviewing much better. When I actually look at ones that I've seen, so Mortal Kombat I thought was very okay. Wasn't too good. Sonic the Hedgehog, in retrospect, I actually really like. More on that in a sec. Detective Pikachu, I think, was decent. The first live-action Pokemon thing, it was great to see that world in live action and see how it would exist in live action. I saw Uncharted the other week. Actually thought it was okay. For those who don't know, Uncharted is a PlayStation exclusive series and it's a very cinematic game. I actually hate the games. I've never had fun with any of them. I find them really boring and slow and too cinematic. I've talked about what kind of games I like on this podcast before, so that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. But the thing is, because the games are so cinematic, I actually think it adapted really well into a movie. The movie has Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg in it. Really enjoyed it. Like, I actually thought it was a really fun action-adventure movie. The Ratchet and Clank movie, again, another PlayStation franchise exclusive, that was pretty average. It got really bad reviews. It wasn't too good, which was a shame. Angry Birds, again, barely a game because it's an iPhone. So, one thing I did want to say is March 31st, which I think it's Thursday. It's this Thursday. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 releases in cinemas. The sequel to the original Sonic the Hedgehog movie that came out in 2020, I think, just before COVID I saw it. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying this. I don't care what you guys think. I am so excited for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the movie. I just am. I don't know why I am. Like, I just am so excited to see it. The first one, again, like, after I saw it, I was like, oh, that was pretty crap. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, that was actually a pretty fun, like, family/kids movie based on Sonic. And I love Sonic the Hedgehog. I think that Sonic the Hedgehog is such an interesting character from a marketing standpoint. Again, not to get back into marketing, but like, there's this great book that was later turned into a documentary called Console Wars. And it's the story of how how Sonic was created and why Sonic was created. And basically, in the 90s, Nintendo was dominating the gaming market with essentially with the Mario character as their mascot, which it still is today. And Sega, this other company who was making and developing games and hardware, were like, how do we beat Nintendo? We can't beat them. And what they actually did, I'm pretty sure they got a bunch of people together, one of whom I think was the guy who created Barbie, like he created Barbie, the doll, and sold it and turned it into the sensation it was. And then I think another one, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the book, one of them was the lead marketing person for Pepsi. And the reason they wanted him was because Pepsi to Coke was essentially what Sega to Nintendo was. So they wanted someone who was really good at marketing the number 2 thing. So they got the guy from Pepsi. And through that, they basically looked at the character of Mario and they were like, okay, this guy, Mario, really wholesome, chubby plumber, Italian, moustache, human. He's not very cool. Like, he's friendly, but he's not cool. The way we beat Nintendo is we have to create a character who is just really cool and just like that kids will think is cooler than Mario, and then Mario will become lame. And that's where they came up with Sonic, who was this edgy, spiky, like hedgehog who could run really fast, right? And they launched Sonic and marketed the hell out of it, and kids loved it. And Sega beat Nintendo in that generation of gaming. They demolished them with Sonic. Sonic, like, sales for Nintendo plummeted, and Sega was like up here, going to be like the next biggest thing in gaming, right? They were selling so many consoles. Sonic became this icon character, and they actually had a slogan which was Sega does what Nintendo don't. So they were actually, their whole strategy was just attack the competition, like non-stop attack the competition. And they beat them. As time went on, Nintendo just won it back, and Sega like really screwed it all up. The momentum of Sonic couldn't maintain itself, so Sega had to bow out of hardware. Like, the Sonic character is still a big brand, but it mostly appears on Nintendo consoles now, ironically. But I love the story of, again, I'm really into like marketing and why things exist the way they do. Like, you look at Sonic and you're like, oh, it's just some dumb kid's character in a game. But it's like everything from that character's design to how the game works, like why the character of Sonic is fast and why everything about that character is what it is because of a marketing reason to sell. Like, every decision about Sonic was to beat Nintendo at its own game, which they did for a period of time. Very fascinating book. Even if you're not into games, if you're into marketing and business, I definitely recommend reading that book or watching the documentary. So yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I'm so excited for it because Tails the fox and Knuckles the echidna, 2 other original Sonic characters appear. In the first movie, it was just Sonic and Dr. Robotnik, the villain from the Sonic games. In this now, Tails and Knuckles, and they look awesome. And I am genuinely so excited for this movie. I'm definitely going to see it, and I'm going to talk about it next week, and I want you guys to see it too. Like, if you're into if you're into games, I reckon you'll like it. Again, they're not groundbreaking movies, but to me, it's like, yeah, I want to see Sonic. I really like that character. I really like everything they're about. I really like Sonic's personality. I like everything about it. So yeah, I'm really keen. And I also like Knuckles and I also think that the Sonic characters are really well designed kids cartoon characters. Like, I really enjoy how they're all really spiky and really like edgy characters. Like, that was always really appealing to me about Sonic. Okay, I've gone way longer on a lot of this stuff than I thought. I might just skip forward a little bit because we got heaps of time, but I've realized a few weeks ago I talked about how I don't like games anymore, and then there was a big controversy in the Discord where everyone was making fun of me for not liking games, but I realized I do really like games. I just need to choose the right games for me. Essentially, like, I can't play a game like Elden Ring. I've got a job. I work every day. I don't have time to play an adventure like game that is really hard and is supposed to be played over like 100 hours. I need games that I can play that are like relatively simple mechanically, but also like fun, engaging, challenging, like easy games. And I've realized that indie games really work for me with that. Games that you don't have to be too invested in, but you can be invested enough in to come back to them and have really addictive gameplay patterns. So I mentioned I played Celeste a few weeks ago. I'm now playing this game called Crosscode, which is an indie game. I'm playing it on PS5, but I think it's on pretty much everything. It is amazing. It is exactly what I want. You can play it in 15-minute bursts. It's like an action-adventure RPG kind of game, and I'm really enjoying it. So I will talk about that game more, but I'm so addicted to it. I find when I'm really addicted to a game, I start thinking about it before I go to sleep, and then I wake up and my brain is thinking about playing it, or I dream about playing it. When I was a kid and I used to play Pokemon on my Game Boy Color, I used to go to bed and hear the music from Pokemon in my ear because I was so like addicted to the game that like my brain was always thinking about it. And I'm like, am I hearing the music from the game? That's such a weird phenomenon. Not like the PhenomoJohn. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying Crosscode. Highly recommend. It's a really fun game. Good concept. Really easy to pick up. And for me, like, I don't care much about story in games. I just want an addicting gameplay loop, like a fun gameplay loop. But I like a little bit of story. I just don't want to have to be too invested in it. And there's like lots of little quests you can do in the world. So it's just fun to do for like 20 to 30 minutes and then go do something else if you get bored. And yeah, I'm really enjoying that. So I'll hopefully be playing that for a while. Of course, 2022 is Mike's big year of footy. We all know that. It is my big year of footy. I'm actually producing, as I said, Two Guys, One Cup, which is Will Anderson and Charlie Clausen's AFL podcast. And I pop up on this week's episode talking about footy. So go and listen to that. It's exclusive to the listener app. Hey, I wanted to talk something about footy because on the weekend, all us footy fans know, Lance Buddy Franklin, who plays for Sydney, scored his 1,000th goal, which is obviously a big deal, as we all know, in the world of footy. And this is Mike's big year of footy, so I need to know that. This was actually really fascinating for a non-footy person. This was really interesting because I mean, I don't know where this was played. Honestly, I should know. It might have been I think it was the SCG, which is the Sydney Cricket Ground up in Sydney. Might have been the MCG, but it makes sense that it was the SCG because it was Sydney versus Geelong. And, you know, Buddy Franklin was going to kick his 1,000th goal. So he kicks the goal. Huge celebration. Thousands and thousands, I repeat, thousands and thousands of supporters run onto the field to congratulate him. Something I've never seen in footy before. Mid-game, so they stop the clock, and there's 5 minutes left on the game. Geelong can't win. They're so far behind, they're not going to win, right? There's 5 minutes left. They stop the clock. Thousands of supporters run onto the field. Not underestimating that. Thousands. And no, I'm not overestimating it. It was thousands. All crowding Lance Franklin. And I was actually worried. And like, it kind of looked really dangerous. There was so many people. It looked like it could have gotten out of hand really quickly because they were all celebrating, but it was like people were getting pushed and shoved and there were people everywhere and people were falling over and it was just crazy. And like Buddy Franklin actually looked frustrated by the end of it. Like he just wanted to get off the field. And also like the COVID risk. It was crazy to see all these people on the field in the middle of a game. I don't think that's ever happened before. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you know the saddest part about it? I'm going to sound like a broken record. Just how, you know, where we are in a society. I was watching this on TV. Every single person was just filming it. And you could see their phone screens that they were filming. And they were just filming literally people in all around Buddy Franklin. Like, you couldn't even see Buddy Franklin. Most of the phones, you could just see the back of someone's head. And I'm like, what is the I don't know, like the psychology behind why we do this? And I'm not innocent of it. Like, I'd do this shit too, but it's like, why have we gotten to this point? Because in the past, we would like go on a holiday, for instance, take photos on a camera with film in it. We'd then go and develop those photos and physically have them printed, put them in a photo album. And then I guess if you had friends over, you'd show them, oh, this is my holiday. Here are the photos, flick through the album. Now it's like, and again, I realize this isn't new territory. We all know all about this. And I'm reading this book at the moment, Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. Really interesting and kind of delves into this because everyone's clearly like filming videos for their Insta story and stuff. Because I think the Insta story is the weirdest part about human psychology. Because I kind of, and I do it, so I'm criticizing myself here as well. Because I kind of get like Instagram as a platform, when you take a photo, it kind of, and you post it and you've got your grid of photos. It's kind of like, this is my photo album. And then you show your friends, oh, this is my photo album. Like, this is what I did. This is all my stuff. And I kind of get that. That kind of is a replacement for the old school photo albums, and functions in a similar way. Of course, like all the likes and stuff is another story, but like generally speaking, an Instagram grid is kind of just like a photo album of the past. Stories are so interesting because they're very much, they're disposable for one, and it's very much like, hey everyone, this is what I'm doing now. How awesome is this? Like, I actually think stories are so motivated by everyone, look at what I'm doing. How good is what I'm doing compared to what you're doing? Essentially, and I know that sounds weird, but it's like, you go to a concert, you'd think, oh, I'm going to enjoy this moment in time that can never be recreated. This moment in time, I'm seeing my favorite band, they're playing my favorite song. I'm going to now, instead of just enjoying the moment, living in this moment, I'm going to pull my phone out, do a 15-second story of terrible quality audio of the Killers playing Mr. Brightside. This is something I did. So everyone that follows me can see that tonight I'm doing this, and this is my life. How awesome is this? And I actually think that's so weird. Like, surely we can all agree that's weird, right? When we actually think about what we're doing, instead of experiencing a moment in time, we're going, I'm going to show everyone that I'm doing this for the next 24 hours so they can all see it. It's like we're all really insecure about our lives. So as soon as something kind of like unique or fun or crazy or different is happening, we do a story to like show everyone, hey, look, this is my life. How good's this? Making it look like this is always our life. So, you know, everyone's on the field with Buddy Franklin filming for their Insta story. And it's like, why don't we enjoy moments anymore? Instead of enjoying moments, we're sharing with people how much we enjoy them, even though we're not actually in them, we're recording them. I don't know. It's just I think I'm not even really criticizing it. I just think it's a very interesting psychological thing to discuss. See, I told you this year would be Mike's big year of footy and psychology. But yeah, any insights into that, I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Because yeah, I find it really fascinating that we do this. And I do it too, as I've said. Before we go, I talked about the new Batman movie a few weeks ago. The response has been livid. People are so angry at me for saying that it's too long of a movie. Look at this. These are all TikTok comments. I could have sat through 3 hours of the Batmobile scene. I bet you loved Avengers Endgame. That was a 3 hours movie. You know, it needed to be long. Godfather, Saving Private Ryan, Apocalypse Now, Schindler's List, The Deer Hunter, Wolf of Wall Street, they all go for 3 hours. You don't have an attention span. That's pretty much the response I got. And like, kind of disagree, because pretty much everyone I've spoken to, like all of my friends that I've spoken to who like have jobs basically, are like, yeah, it's too long a movie for me to see. Like 3 hours is actually a lot of time, especially when you add in like half an hour of trailers before getting to a movie. It's like, that becomes like half a day. It's like a 4 or 5 hour outing as opposed to like a 3 hour going to the movies on a Friday night, right? It becomes like a 5 hour outing maybe, getting dinner before, all that stuff. That's what I mean. Like, I was tired by the end of it. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I was actually just really tired by the end of that movie. I was gonna fall asleep because I just think when you work a lot, you come home and you're really tired and you're like, I don't want to see a 3-hour movie. I just want to watch and then someone commented on my letterbox because I gave Uncharted the same score that I gave Batman. Someone's like, shame on you for giving Uncharted the same score as Batman. And I'm like, but guys, my opinions are like my opinions and they're subjective. And movies are subjective. Like what I want from a movie and what I want, like what I think is good in a movie is different to what a film, like I'm not a film buff. I actually don't even care much about any film techniques or like, you know, filmography or cinematography. I don't care much about that. I just want an interesting story or a fun movie, right? That's why I like Sonic. My favorite movie is literally The Emperor's New Groove. I'm not pretending that I'm a movie buff. No one should like listen to my opinions of movies and be like, this guy knows everything about movies. I don't. My favorite movie is The Emperor's New Groove. My second favorite movie is School of Rock. I don't know anything about movies. I just like movies that I like. It's like with music. When people are like, oh, you listen to that band, you suck. Well, no, I don't. I just like the you don't choose what music you're into. You actually just don't. A song gets played to you and you're like, I really like that song. And another person's like, that song sucks. That band sucks. How can you like them? They're not good at music. It's like, well, I like it. That's like growing up when I loved Blink-182 and people at school would be like, oh, who listens to Blink-182? They're losers. What the hell? I'm like, I like them. Their music's awesome. I really like Blink-182. Just, guys, everyone who commented on the Batman TikTok angry at me and saying, you don't know anything about movies, you're right. I don't know anything about movies. I just don't want to watch a 3-hour movie because I got really tired. That's all. People are like, your attention span is like a 6-year-old. No, I can watch movies. I was just really tired at 11:30 p.m. when Batman was finishing and I had worked all week and I was really tired. Sorry, guys. Just a reality of being human. You gotta get sleep. I think Batman was a really good movie. Actually, I liked Batman a lot. It was just a really long movie. But I still think just because there's a dark and gritty Batman, that doesn't instantly mean it's a really good movie. Anyway, guys, coming to the end of the podcast, let us do one of these. The plug. Okay, this is the plug, just where I plug everything I've been doing. You can catch me this week on 2 Guys 1 Cup over on Listener. Download the app, and I'm speaking a little bit there if you want to hear a bit more content from me. I'm talking a bit more about the Buddy Franklin thing, but I would love for you to check that out. Of course, on this feed, I did a new bonus compilation of my radio crosses to 3AW with DD Dunleavy. Every Thursday at 1:45 p.m, I do a cross. A radio cross talking trending topics on the internet. So a bit more content from me, most of it new. So I'd love for you to listen to that. It's on this feed. Of course, the Patreon, jump on now. There's a whole back catalogue of Pat and Mike's and Overflow podcasts, and there's an Overflow up right now. Go and listen to it. I think the idea with the Overflow is you listen to this, it finishes, and then you go listen to the Overflow because I record them. Like, as soon as I finish recording this, I will instantly start recording the Overflow. So, yeah, like, the idea is you listen kind of in tandem. So, I'll be talking a little bit about the 100 and other bits and pieces on that as well. So, definitely jump on if you want to learn more about behind the scenes of Australian TV. On Pat and Mike this week, I can't remember what we talked about, but there's a bunch of great episodes there. A completely improvised Simpsons episode that we did, which is really funny. I re-listened to it and loved it. Behind the scenes of 20th Century Boy, how we make it, what our processes are, what we do. If you're interested in that, again, $1, you get access to like hours and hours of extra content for $1. So I think it's well worth it. We're overflowing with content there. Harry Potter and the Boys is still there as well. Trying to get an episode together this week, but because it's Comedy Festival coming up, everyone's really busy, so apologies if there's not one this week. Trying to do my best. Catch last week's one with the guys from 1001 Songs That Make You Want to Die. I think that is essentially everything to plug for this week, so I'll finish it up. Thank you so much for listening, guys. My name's been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind. I will catch you soon. See you later. This episode of 20th Century Boy was brought to you by Radio Mike on Patreon. If you just finished the podcast and want to hear me talk even more, head to patreon.com/Radio Mike to get access to the TCB Overflow podcast, an extra podcast every week, and the Pat and Mike Show, where me and producer Pat talk behind the scenes of making this show. The Patreon is overflowing with content. We'll see you there. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.